Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Bobby Piton here, and we're going to go over a couple things going on in the markets. It's somewhat quiet. Things are continuing to creep up a little bit more. There are some big movers on the day. There are some big movers on the day that we'll go over, and some of them have released earnings. So we'll be sure to kind of go over the earnings and see why they've done as well as they've done today, and kind of talk about that and see what that looks like for the rest of the economy. And so let me just share my screen here, and then we're going to just go back to here. Okay, so a couple of the companies that have reported some blowout numbers. One is a company called PBH, and so this is I think it's a clothing company, right? I haven't looked at them in a while. They are clothing. They had an incredible quarter, so I'm going to share the results of that and show why the stock is up. I think it's up almost 15% right now, and then after that, we're going to look at another company that I remember looking at, I think about 5 or 6 years ago. I owned it for a short period of time. I'm silly because I ended up selling it way too soon. I think I found it when it was a pretty small little company at the time. I think it was maybe under $1 billion. Now it's worth about $10 billion, and so it's called Sunrun. And I'll explain why I thought it was interesting back then. I'm not saying I'm a buyer of it now. None of these things I'm saying I'm a buyer of. This is mainly for educational purposes only. And so let me take a look here. Stock chart. So let me pull up the first company, which is let me take a look here, is PBH. So I'm going to share my screen now. 1 second. All right. So PBH, you can see that this company increased their second quarter guidance. Their second quarter revenue went up 46%. Basically, 6% was from currency, and so 40% on a constant currency basis, which is absolutely unbelievable, right? I mean, that is a massive move for any company year over year, especially a company that is somewhat established, right? That this thing is up 46% in year over year on the same quarter. So the revenue is higher, significantly higher than the 2019 pre-pandemic levels, which is a big deal. Digital channels grew 35%. Total revenues now, digital penetration is about 25%. So, wow, that's unbelievable. Look at this, folks. They earned $2.51 versus guidance of 80 cents. So they came in 3 times as high as basically as estimates. And then the guidance is 272 versus 115 to 118. So they're raising earnings by a third, $8.80 versus $6.60. That is wild. So needless to say, this company is on fire. Once again, I have no opinion on the valuation, but I do want to just say that it's worth looking at as to what's causing all this. And so let's see if we go here to their revenue line. And so right here, 6 months ended, they did $4.4 billion versus $2.9 billion a year ago. For the quarter, they did 2.3 versus 1.58. And going down here, let's see what changed. What changed that would allow them to make so much money? So right here, royalty and advertising revenue. This is about $40 million of probably accretive. So if you can collect these royalties, you would pick up about $40 million just going right to the bottom line of this company, 42 million or so. And so that's a big deal right there. Royalty revenue, wow, it's more than doubled. So the royalty money that they're collecting is really kicking in. And for some reason, this advertising number is really kicking in. So somehow they're making money off of ads, maybe off of their website or something, which is, very interesting that they're going through and making money off of advertising, maybe for other companies with their existing customer base. But $20 million is nothing to sneeze at in one quarter, and that they pulled in on advertising. And so, given the fact that their profits are about 180 million, if that advertising revenue was no cost, that's over 10% of their profits for the quarter, which is pretty remarkable that came out of nowhere. So right now, versus a year ago, you can see that they were breaking even. Right, this was last year when things got ugly, and then in this quarter. And now they're 279. Now keep in mind, they lost $1 billion over a 6-month period last year when everything shut down. And a lot of that is because they produce things overseas, right? So if they shut down, if they shut down the entire economy and they can't ship stuff in, this would hurt this company a little bit more. Let me see here. So let's see here. So let's go to the balance sheet here. Hold on a second. Let's go to the balance sheet. Statement of operations. Okay, here we go. So the balance sheet, even though they made so much more money than they did last year, the current assets is down about 100 million, 3.7 billion versus 3.8. Okay. The goodwill is flat. Okay, so property, plant, and equipment is down 80 million. That's because probably of a charge off they might have taken. And so current liabilities, let's see here, long-term debt 2.8. They did pay down a lot of debt though. Look at that. They did pay down 500 million, about $700 million. So somehow they paid down a lot of debt. Their other liabilities did not go up. So they paid down a lot of debt with the money that they generated. I'm just curious if we could see the cash flow statement. Hold on. So what did they issue any shares? And we could see Tommy Hilfiger. Wow, that is an explosion. So Tommy Hilfiger went from $1.066 billion to 1.6. So they went up $600 million right here. This is international. So for some reason, international, look at domestic. Domestic is only up 30% or so, 383 to 519, but international took off like a rocket. So the question is, where did that go? Wow, look at international here too, 671 to 1.1 billion. Calvin Klein went up 70%. They own that brand, and that took off. So it's very fascinating to see, what countries are they doing so well in? I think it would be an important thing to better understand, to see, is this a one-time adjustment, or is there something changing with regards to the types of customers that are buying these two brands, Calvin Klein as well as Tommy Hilfiger? So for some reason, they do not have a cash flow statement. I wanted to look at the cash flow statement. They don't always include them in the earnings report. They did have the balance sheet. They do have this. They did not break it out. I'd like to see how many shares they issued and such, but they're not showing that. And they don't show their share count here, which is bizarre. They show the net income, but they don't show the share count. So I don't know why some companies do that. So if they earn $2.51 a share, and there was 181.9 million in earnings, we take 251. Their share count was 72.47 million shares. 72.47. So a year ago, it's only gone up by 1 million shares. So I don't know why they didn't list it. It's just kind of bizarre. So their share count did not go up. So that's that. So let's look at PBH is having a really big day. It's always dangerous to go buy something after it's had a big day up. Especially, who knows if this is going to stick. It's just something to think about. I'm not sure why. Here, let's take a look. 1 year charts are not available. It's kind of weird that I'm having some problems with the old Google. They're not showing me charts past 1 year. But you can see that this is having a good day. It's up 15%. Their earnings and revenue are up over 40%. So I guess you could say that this return to normalcy is probably what kind of drove this thing up. Okay, so now we're going to go to this company called Sunrun, and it's up 6%. But I'm going to go over this because it's an interesting little company. And so we're going to go to the SEC.gov, and when everybody was starting to go solar, and they kind of ran the analysis and said, people aren't going to want to spend $20,000-$30,000 to get. It's interesting. It's up. Maybe somebody said something positive about it. So there is no news today from an SEC filing perspective. But let's look at the earnings anyways. This came out in August. It's a neat little company, and what they do is they for people that don't want to put the money up to put solar onto their homes, they can contract a company like Sunrun to build out the system onto their homes, and then they agree. The person that buys it, has them install it, agrees to buy the service. So it's a residential solar storage and energy services company, and I think it's an interesting proposition because people might want to help, create alternative energy to fossil fuels, and I happen to think that solar is our solution long term. That's a personal thing. I think that the sun keeps us all alive on this planet. And the sun heats the planet. The sun grows all of our food. The sun does all these wonderful things for us. So it makes sense that we could probably figure out a way to use the sun to create our other energy needs. It already creates our energy in the way of food, and in the way of actually keeping us alive, because we do need the sun to stay alive from heating the earth perspective. So it would make sense that somehow we can maybe capture the sun for energy. And so this company, this is what they do. They're basically saying only 3.5% of 77 million addressable homes have solar. And this is a $187 billion market, they think. And I understand that, utilities are also doing this. It probably makes sense at some point, if utilities aren't doing this, is to literally transition away from just their traditional networks and provide this type of service to their clients. Have their clients run out CapEx and then provide their traditional electricity services with this type of thing. I'm surprised, frankly, they haven't done it yet. But right now, this company is grown pretty nicely. It's up to almost 600,000 customers now, is what I just saw right here. Sunrun had 599,000 customers, and the average contract is 17 years. So they put out this CapEx, and they build these things out. And I don't think it's a money laundering scheme. I've read that 10K on this years ago, and like I said, I've been watching this company, and it's a real company. Like this isn't just pie in the sky stuff. They're taking advantage of an arbitrage. So let me explain. This is a good transition. Okay, I'm not telling anybody to buy it. I'm not telling anybody to sell it. I have no opinion on the valuation. I'm just telling you it showed up. I noticed it was moving, and I do know about this company because, like I said, I've looked into it before, And I've read the filing. I've actually talked to some people that were experts in energy about this. Not a good idea for Texas. Remember last winter? Yeah, but keep in mind, Jose. Here's the deal with regards to Texas. Just because I think something might make a lot of sense, I'm not a big believer in just eliminating everything else in the process. So if you use solar, for example, let's just say Bobby Piton was using solar. What I would probably, if I had to design a system, if you said, Bobby, I want you to design energy security for the United States, and I was tasked with that. And you guys said, Bobby, figure it out. What would you do to help this country make sure that we are a very secure nation, and from an energy perspective? We have a lot of crazy people out there, crazy countries that could shut off our oil supply, crazy Democrats that shut off our oil supply from Alaska, right? And we got all this goofy stuff going on. And so what I would do is I would be like, okay, we're going to make the cost of geothermal, we're going to make it super, super efficient. We're going to make sure every home in America, first and foremost, uses geothermal energy to get the core temperature of the house to a specific temperature, because then you only heat or cool the difference. So if the core temperature of the earth is, say, 50, I'm not exactly sure on these numbers, folks. I'd have to look at it. But let's just say if you dig down a certain number of feet, the temperature that you can heat your baseline of underneath your house is, say, 50 degrees, 50, 55 degrees. So if we pull heat from the core of the earth in a healthy manner, right, using this geothermal type of thing, we would significantly cut our demand for fossil fuels, because we would, in a sense, create a baseline within each existing structure that is being powered by the core of our earth. And then we only have to heat or cool above that number, okay? So now the next thing I would do is I would want as much power as I could from the sun, because if we got the sun to heat, to generate energy that we can use for electricity, right? Then we use that energy, and then geothermal is to heat your house, is not heat from the core. Well, Roger, I'm not saying it's from the core. We'd have to drill really deep. I mean, I'm just saying, I'm saying is it's pulling energy, it's pulling heat from the earth a certain number of feet down, and that energy, whatever that heat is above it, is from the core. So it's not drilling all the way to the core. That's not what I meant to imply. So Roger, thank you for the clarification, but I have no interest. We're not drilling to the center of the earth, Roger. This isn't a science fiction book time. I'm saying is that I think that if we drill down a certain number of feet, there's a certain amount of heat that is in the mantle of the earth, and I think they pull it up. Is the way, at least I've read it. And once again, you're a much bigger expert in this than me. I'm not invested in any of these things. I'm just saying that if we were to try to figure out how to use energy, I'm all for trying to use the energy that's already potential energy that's like literally underneath the stuff. The part came from China, Bobby. What's this? No, it's just using the earth as a heat sink for a heat pump. It's using the earth as a heat sink. Okay, Roger, let's have this conversation later. Maybe what we'll do is I'll get an account for GoToMeeting, and we'll talk about it on here. But let's stay on task. I definitely am interested, because I would love to better understand why we don't make geothermal much more, much more pertinent in our energy complex in this country. In terms of Texas, Jose, I'm not sure Texas ever got hit with a storm, a winter storm like it did last year. So that's part of the problem right there. And so, Texas isn't used to winter type weather, which is why they don't have the proper insulation either. And so now, granted, they could have used the insulation to make their air conditioning costs cheaper, but obviously I'm not sure the differences with regards to the insulation that you would use for heat versus cooling. I don't know if it's identical or if it would be different. With regards to the money laundering for Tommy Hilfiger, Ann, I don't know if that's the case, but it's definitely something worth looking into, isn't it? When something grows so abnormally. Um, so let's take a look here with regards to this concept of solar energy. I've kind of kept up. I haven't looked at it recently, but I do know that the prices and the efficiency was definitely falling through time, and so it was. The price was falling, efficiency was rising, and if we can capture the sun and then combine it with geothermal and then use traditional electricity from the existing electric utility companies as another piece of the mix, I think that we would have an easier time transitioning off of fossil fuels such as oil. Right? I think we should if we're going to pull out, I would pull out of fossil fuel first from the oil complex, and then maybe natural gas runs cleaner. But looking at the needs that we would have as a nation to to basically create enough energy or have enough energy um, to have all electric vehicles in the United States, we would have to quadruple or have our power grid go up fivefold. So somewhere along the way, if we want to get off of oil and go to electric vehicles, we're going to need to increase the uh, the electrical grid of this country by a factor of 4 or 5. And so it's not going to, it would be a massive multi-trillion-dollar expenditure, if not more, because of regulation and everything else. But what I would say is that some type of combination of cutting our energy needs through using solar, using geothermal energy, and then backfilling it with natural gas and traditional electricity might actually work. And so that's what I would say with that. I think geothermal sounds very good. I mean, I like I said, I haven't looked at this in a while. I did do a lot of work on this years ago. I would say probably about 5 or 6 years ago, and I did conclude that a lot of it is waste of money, and so I never really looked into it again. And so I was like, this is just a bunch of BS. Same like the corn, right? Like when you have people are trying to use biofuels. It's one of the most ridiculous concepts ever. To grow energy that we, instead of eating the corn, we're going to try to turn it into biofuels. It's just silly. It was a lot of wasted energy, and a lot of those companies all imploded. I think it was probably like a money grab for certain companies that went into that. But anyways, that's what's going on with those two companies today. In terms of the market, it's made a new high again. I think the S&P is up 27 bips. Nasdaq's up 70 bips. Payrolls came in lighter than expected. I will say an interesting bit of news did come out. Is not. I think it's not coming out. It's here we go. It's interesting. 3330. Let me just show this chart here. So the past week or so, I've been talking about this bio and tech that it was funded by a startup. I'm sorry, it was funded by a VC firm in Germany that funded this German company, which got its money from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and then all of a sudden, them as well as Pfizer made some kind of announcement. I think about a week ago, and the stock went up to about 380, 390. Now it's back to 330. So it is down about $55 from that number. It's been as high as 464 this year. But what I find really disturbing about this is the fact that what I think is disturbing about this, and I have no opinion, folks, to go long or short this or buy or sell these companies. I'm just kind of talking about it from our perspective dealing with this virus in this country. Is that this company went public right before right before everything hit, and it went public, I think, in November of 2019, and that's what I find very alarming. And I do think that the regulators should be looking into this, and that's the issue that I would say we have right now. Is that when companies like this that make a huge windfall, 20, 30 times your money in a short period of time, and not just on a couple $1,000,000, folks. This thing was worth it was worth over $100 billion, but even now it's worth $80 billion, and there's no checks and balances in place, to deal with this. And so, anyways, that's the deal, folks. Jose is saying that shortage of computers, laptops, not enough microchips are being produced. We definitely need to get going a little faster on producing more chips, and we need to be producing everything on U.S. soil, is what I would say, and I have been saying. So anyways, I think that's it. There's nothing else really going on. The market's steady Eddie, climbing a little higher. No other companies were really reporting of note, and so we'll take a look and see what other kind of news is coming out the next few days. I'll start pulling up more economic data in terms of if there's meaningful stuff. But everything's been kind of quiet. I think it feels like we're most definitely in some sort of holding pattern here. So we'll take a look, and if something changes overnight, I'll start looking at the nightly news in Asia and start to kind of mix it up and share those insights as well. So hope you guys have a wonderful afternoon, and I will talk to you soon. God bless.